October 4th, 2003. He thought he was being pranked. Emergency Service Unit cop Martin Duffy thought the old-timer was hazing him when he reported to work and was told his mission for the afternoon. But it was no joke. Soon Officer Duffy found himself climbing out of a window on the 7th floor and rappelling down the side of a 21-story Harlem apartment building. At the 5th floor, he dangled, peering into an apartment window, then took aim and fired a tranquilizer dart gun. The dart hit the 400-pound tiger in the rump. Enraged, the massive cat roared, showing off long, wicked-looking canines, and then charged toward the window. From the time he was little, Antoine Yates adored animals. He was always bringing home stray puppies or injured birds. His mother Martha indulged his love, allowing her son to keep a variety of pets throughout his childhood. As Antoine got older, his interests turned to more exotic animals. The peace he found in taking care of animals was a refuge against the dangerous, crime-infested Harlem neighborhood where he grew up in the early 1980s. While his brother Aaron took to the streets, Antoine was inside with his pets. Over time, he had boa constrictors and several other reptiles, capuchin and squirrel monkeys. In the spring of 2000, the Yates family, which included a rotating group of foster kids, was living in a 5-bedroom apartment in the Drew Hamilton houses, a huge dismal housing project built in the 1960s. Antoine, now in his early 30s, concocted a plan with his mother and sister to open a zoo. He already owned 2 pythons and a caiman. Despite only being a part-time taxi driver, Antoine was able to save up thousands of dollars and falsify papers to prove he had a zoo in order to purchase a lion club from the Bearcat Hollow Animal Park in Racine, Minnesota. Later, Antoine also purchased Ming, an 8-week-old Siberian Bengal hybrid tiger cub from the same breeders. In addition to his other pets, eventually Antoine ended up with 2 lions and 2 tiger cubs. Not long after, his mom and sister backed out of the zoo project and Antoine was forced to give up his new pets. Antoine rehomed the pythons, lion cubs, and one of the tigers, but kept Al the caiman and Ming the tiger cub, whom he especially loved. Over the next 3 years, Antoine raised Ming in the Yates family's 5th-floor apartment. He fed him bottles around the clock. Ming quickly graduated to pureed meat and then meat chunks. Martha gradually became unhappy with the living situation. Fearing for her and her children's safety, she and 2 foster children moved to Philadelphia, relinquishing apartment E5 to her son. Antoine built Ming a sandpit complete with balls. Al the caiman, who lived in another bedroom, had a custom fiberglass tank. Sometimes Antoine would freeze a pan of liver and give Ming a giant meat popsicle. By the time Ming was 3 in 2003, he'd weighed over 400 pounds. Antoine was feeding him about 20 pounds of raw chicken a day. The tiger was a semi-open secret. Some of Antoine's friends and neighbors were aware of the big cat. Across the way, there was a senior citizen center as part of the apartment complex. Ming used to stand on his hind legs and look out the window. Aaron joked with his brother about the workers at the retirement home thinking that the old people were senile when they claimed to have seen a tiger looking out of an apartment window. On and off, Antoine had roommates who were at first scared but became accustomed to the tiger. Antoine went through bouts of depression where he was a recluse. He would mainly meditate and hang out with Ming. One day, Antoine found a small black kitten. As always, he took the stray home, naming it Shadow. He kept Shadow in a bedroom away from the tiger. Unfortunately, Shadow got out. Territorial Ming went for the kitten. Antoine tried to intervene and protect it. Aaron had a premonition that something was wrong and rushed over to the apartment to find his brother Antoine in shock. Ming had severely bitten Antoine's arm and leg. Aaron called 911, but there was no way they wanted the paramedics coming to the apartment and discovering Ming. Aaron helped his brother down to the lobby where they were met by police. Antoine was transported to the Harlem Hospital Center, where he claimed that he'd been attacked by a bulldog. However, the doctors were suspicious. The bites looked like they came from an animal with a much larger jaw. Meanwhile, the police received 2 anonymous tips in the next few days following the attack. One said there was a wild animal somewhere in the city. The second call directed them to the exact address. That evening, a policeman came knocking on the door of apartment E5 for a welfare check. No one was home, but the officer heard loud growling noises coming from the apartment. Wisely, he decided to not go in. The officer talked to a neighbor who complained of large amounts of urine and a strong smell coming through the ceiling. Officers from TARU, the Technical Assistance Response Unit, drilled a hole through the neighbor's wall to get a visual of what was inside the apartment. They saw a mattress that had been shredded as if it were made of paper, claw marks scratched down the wall from ceiling to floor, and then Ming wandered into view. 400 pounds of rippling muscled cat, over 9 feet tall when he stood on his hind legs. The massive tiger was even shocking to jaded police who thought they had seen it all. The tiger was left alone for the night. The apartment cordoned off while the police formulated a plan. They didn't want to have to kill the tiger, yet they had to safely remove the big cat from the apartment while keeping the public protected. They called animal experts, including Dr. Robert A. Cook, the head veterinarian at the Bronx Zoo, for help. The next day, from the apartment below on the 4th floor, the police raised a pole-mounted camera out of the window to keep track of Ming. Meanwhile, on the 7th floor, the police laid out a strategy. Dr. Cook prepared tranquilizer darts for the chosen marksman, Officer Duffy, and gave him advice. Around 4:30 p.m., police sniper Duffy, armed both with a tranquilizer dart gun and a rifle with live ammunition, abseiled down to the 5th floor. Meanwhile, the word had gotten out about the tiger. The media, along with a curious crowd of citizens, gathered below to watch. Dangling in a rope sling, Officer Duffy peered into the bedroom window of apartment E5. He could clearly see Ming peacefully chilling on the bedroom floor. The tiger looked back at the policeman and then turned slightly, giving Duffy a good view of his hind quarters. Duffy held the tranquilizer gun up to the window, making sure that the barrel wasn't blocked by the child's safety slates. Scarcely breathing, he pulled the trigger. The dart landed true, hitting Ming in the butt. The tiger jumped up and went berserk. He roared and charged the window. The building shook as the massive cat smashed into the window, cracking it. As the tiger headbutted the window again, Duffy worried that the glass would give way. If the big cat survived the fall, they'd have an angry, injured tiger on a crowded public street. Duffy took aim and shot again. The second dart shot caused Ming to retreat. He laid down in a nest of plastic trash bags. About 12 minutes later, the tiger tried to get up but staggered, feeling the effects of the sedation. After waiting another 5 minutes guarded by a group of emergency service unit officers, Dr. Cook and another zoo staffer cautiously entered the apartment. Ming lay in a corner. The zoo staff slipped a restraint pole around Ming's head and gave him a little more sedative by injection to make sure he was sedated enough to transport. Ming was then lifted onto a gurney. A fire department oxygen mask was clamped to his face. The gurney was carefully wheeled down the hall and onto the elevator. Once they were on the street, officers had to force the crowd back as a half-dozen men struggled to hoist Ming into the back of an animal care and control box truck. The police also removed Al the Cayman, who was nearly 5 feet long, a rabbit, and several other exotic and domestic pets from the apartment. Allegedly, Antoine had a second tiger, some bear cubs, 2 Rottweilers, more rabbits, and a tarantula. Ming was taken to the Center for Animal Care and Control on 110th Street and given a checkup. Despite the fact that he was raised in a tiny New York apartment, the tiger was relatively healthy. Meanwhile, Antoine mysteriously checked out of the hospital. Authorities finally located him in Philadelphia, where he was being treated at the University of Pennsylvania Medical Center. Antoine was arrested on charges of reckless endangerment and the possession of a wild animal. Eventually, he was able to get some pro bono help to fight the case. He also had some support from people in the community. During his court proceedings, a small crowd gathered outside of the courthouse to chant, "Free Tiger Man!" Antoine's lawyers presented him as maybe a little misguided, but someone who deeply loved animals. Later, Martha Yates was charged with endangering the welfare of a child, since she kept foster children in the apartment. As part of a plea agreement to reduce charges against his mother, Antoine pleaded guilty to reckless endangerment. He was sentenced to a 5-month prison term with 5 years probation. Antoine was released after serving only 3 months. He sued New York City for the loss of his pets and for $7,000 cash, which he claimed had also been in the apartment when the police raided it. A judge quickly dismissed the case, calling Antoine full of chutzpah. Since losing Ming and spending time in jail, Antoine's life had been a bit of a mystery. For a while, Antoine tried to get a job with several different exotic professional animal handlers, but no one wanted to work with him. He was notorious, and the idea of keeping a magnificent animal in a tiny apartment left a bad taste in some people's mouths. In the intervening years, Antoine's been interviewed at various times by the media. A few documentaries have been made about the tiger raised in Harlem. In October 2010, the Animal Planet channel featured the story of Antoine Yates and Ming on the show Fatal Attractions. For some time, Antoine's claimed to be on the verge of various deals to open a zoo and get Ming back. He's also made many unverifiable claims about different jobs he's had working with exotic cats. Ming is now 19 and has lived at the Noah's Lost Ark Animal Sanctuary in Berlin Center, Ohio, after being moved there from the Center for Animal Care and Control in 2003. Al was also rehomed to an animal sanctuary. The tale of Antoine Yates and Ming, admittedly, is the most extreme case of owning an exotic animal. Though the number is slowly growing due to recent conservation programs, researchers estimate that there are only about 4,000 tigers left in the wild worldwide. There are a couple thousand tigers in the US, with upwards of 500 big cats privately owned as pets. Assuming they have the resources, do you think people should be allowed to keep wild or exotic animals as pets? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, What if you woke up with shark's teeth? Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.